Welcome again, another episode of the Dialed and Driven Hockey Mentality Podcast. Chris Palmer with Piranha Training, mental performance coach for hockey players. Jeff Lerg, goalie mentors, former professional hockey player. Every single week, we're here to give you things that are actionable, things you can use. And this week, we're going to talk about something on a little different side. We talk about some of the negative things you have to get through, what you have to do to pay the price to get what you want. But today, we're going to talk about what is on that path that's so amazing that you can use it as fuel to help you get where you want to get. Because in the end, if all you're doing is shooting for the mountaintop, you're spending 10, 15 years for this one moment. What if it never happens? Was it all for nothing? Because I tell you, every single week I have people saying, if I don't make this, is it all for nothing? It's not. There's a ton. And we're talking about this idea of enjoying the ride, moving along, and the silver lining if things don't work out, and the fuel for everything you want. Jeff, do you want to start telling us about the things that you think are just fuel, things you should really enjoy as you're going along to help you go for this big dream?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, we've spent some time trying to talk about some elements that are going to make you successful as an athlete: discipline and accountability and suffering. And we don't want this to feel like it's a negative ride that you're on. Sports is fun. The reason you play sports as a kid is that parents want to teach you some life skills and life lessons along the way. Maybe they want to get you out of the house, but also really they want to keep you active and help you just enjoy the elements of sports, because you're going to work for at some point during the rest of your life. So enjoy the ride that you have as a kid and as a youth athlete. And if it turns into a higher level of college, Olympic, pro, whatever level you make, enjoying that ride is really what keeps you coming back. So those elements are part of the puzzle, but the real secret sauce is just the overall joy of playing.
I just want to be clear, because I can hear people in the background saying right now, hey, this is one of those episodes about just being mediocre and kind of accepting things if they don't work out. Believe me, that's not what this is about. I don't know anybody more dialed than you in the universe, Jeff, and I know that I want everybody to have a life that feels like a life. We want to tell you in this episode things that you can see along the way that will actually be fuel for this big dream. We're all about the big dream. But seriously, one of the coolest things, and I'll mention this right now, I don't know anybody who doesn't love the locker room. There's just something about the camaraderie of a team together. You guys are busting your ass trying to make things happen. And I don't care whether you're losing and you're trying to find a way to pull together, or you're winning and it's just unbelievable. No matter what it is, there's something just cool about the locker room, just showing up. And I've never had anybody tell me that that wasn't something they enjoyed. I mean, occasionally you got weird bully things going on, but for the most part, whether it's a road trip or the locker room, guys love that part. It's a really special part about hockey. Do you have any thoughts on any of that stuff, Jeff?
Hockey, more than any other sport, is when you speak to retired hockey players, they'll look back on their memories in the locker room and talk about how they've made lifelong friends from playing the sport. I've met a lot of athletes in a lot of sports, and I can tell you that is not consistent across the board. I remember being in college at Michigan State, and we were talking to the players on the football team, and they were referencing how they didn't even know everyone's name on the roster. They didn't even know the offensive guys, didn't know the defensive guys or the special teams guy. But in hockey, that's not the case. You develop lifelong relationships and lifelong friends. And many of my teammates, when I was 12, 13, and 14 years old, we're still in contact with, and you kind of see each other's lives grow up through social media at times. But you run into them in the street, you could chat with them for a long, long time about bringing up old memories.
You know, I think it has to do with how hard it is. It's just so hard, and everybody relies on everybody. You can't do this thing alone. I mean, every once in a while you have somebody go 200 feet, but it's pretty rare. And especially the higher up you go, it's just chip, 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 grind, grind, grind. It's a tough game, and it's so hard, and it's so physically violent, and it's so overwhelming that it's almost impossible not to bond through that, because you have to have each other's backs, and you often do. It's so great when somebody scores and you come down and everybody's, hitting high fives or whatever. You go pat the goalie on the head. It's just an amazing, amazing thing to see. But it even brings me back to this thing. I certainly wasn't as cool of a sport as a runner, but my best memories of running weren't being All-American. It wasn't being sponsored by Nike. It was being in these Saturday morning workouts where I'm busting my ass with my boys, my guys, and we were all just suffering together. I've never had that in my whole life. I've never had a situation that was that crazy where you're just running till you puke and it's cool. You're collapsed on the ground in 95-degree heat in Florida. It's just amazing. And And hockey makes that look like a vacation. Hockey's insane. You got these blades that are incredibly sharp. Some people die. It's incredibly violent. Violence actually expected. It's rewarded. And on top of that, it's so skill-oriented, but at the same time, you got to watch out so your head doesn't get knocked off. It's this amazing duress that people are under. I don't know if a sport that requires more parts of your brain and body, and I don't say this as disrespect. I think football's really hard. Baseball's really hard. There's lots of things that are really hard. But hockey, man, it's just 1,000 miles an hour with no break. You can't walk away from it. It's just this thing where it's just drive. And I think that's kind of really what creates this bond. You're all in this hard thing together.
Yeah, and you mentioned some of the physical attributes that you helped develop for yourself, the cognitive ability, the quick decision making. But really, the hockey culture is one of being selfless and one of being a good teammate. And if you don't act in that manner, you're not going to make your way up to the highest levels. Even the top player in the world, Connor McDavid, he's a great teammate and he's selfless. He gets more assists than goals. And that's just the nature of the sport. It's not like a basketball player going to score 60 points in a game and putting the whole team on his back and everyone just stands there and watches and he gets all the glory. No, hockey, you have to be a great teammate. You have to be selfless. And that's why when you listen to championship teams, they talk about how much they enjoyed their teammates and they enjoyed being in the locker room, and you transition that into other stages of life. That's why adult hockey is so relevant in our country. There's many workforce members get up early and skate before work, or they have the men's league, the beer leagues that they play in the evenings. And it's because of that camaraderie. It's because of the locker room, the banter, the joy of just being around each other. You're not as fast as you used to be, but for some reason, many people still get up early or stay out late to go play the game of hockey.
Yeah. This guy's 75 years old, I know, in beer leagues. 75 years old. I hope to God I can move around well at 75, much less be on blades. But it's incredible. It's just part of this big bonding thing. But I want to mention this idea in sports psychology because this whole thing's about hockey mentality. I'm going to give you something as usual. Believe it or not, there's this thing, and it sounds kind of weird. It sounds like I'm working with crystals or something like that, but it's gratitude. And before you dismiss it, I just want you to know that gratitude's a real thing. Anytime you're actually grateful for what you have, you feel better. Over and over again. Seriously, they work with people who have depression, and they do two things with people who have depression for an instant fix. One is to have them do something for other people. You do something for other people, it immediately, temporarily keeps you out of this kind of depressed state. But the other part's gratitude for what you have. Because everybody I've ever known, and I'm sure it's the same for you, everybody I've ever worked with, they're working for this big giant thing. And once you get to the top of that mountain, whether you win state or whether you won nationals or you just got signed by whoever, it feels great. But if you ever watch the Stanley Cup, at the very beginning, the first couple of guys, it's like, oh my gosh, it's amazing. And then like 14 minutes later, as they're running the cup around, it just looks like it's less exciting. Within 15 minutes, it becomes less exciting. This is Stanley Cup. So for everybody, it's not about the success point. It's about the whole ride to the success point. And we really want to hammer today this idea that if you can find a way to truly be grateful for what you have, not force gratitude, don't tell your kids you got to be grateful, but if you can find things to be grateful for along the way, and there's so many things, whether it's bus trips, whether it's connecting with other people in the locker room, whether it's growing skill and abilities, whether it's becoming better and better, having people pay attention to you, making teams, there's all these amazing things that help you in life. If you can be grateful for every single day along the way, some part of it, and some people, before they go to bed at night, think of 2 or 3 things that they're grateful for in the day. It just trains you to believe that life is actually going pretty damn well. And by the way, it is. We're all still alive. Somehow everybody on the planet survives so far. So to me, gratitude's a giant thing. In sports psychology, it's a giant thing. Any thoughts, Jeff?
Yeah, for the athletes listening, this is more of a balancing act here where you're on the wire and you're trying to look back and maybe a recent loss or failure of the season, and maybe you can actually quantify some great things that came out of it. Maybe you learned a new skill or you got yourself out of your comfort zone and advanced your game. But on the other side of the wire, you still got to stay hungry and find a way to not be accepting defeat or not reaching your goals. So for me, I know a lot of my gratitude took place after a season or after a stopping point, from junior hockey into college hockey or college to pro. It's really when you have time to kind of debrief and reflect on the situation. And then for the parents out there, really, a lot of this messaging can be used to reiterate these points to those that are going through the ups and downs or chasing the big dream as a way to say, hey, you may not have won the state title, but look at all these great things that you did and keep your athlete on track. And I know for me, it took a handful of years to really look back and see all the great things that came out of my many years of playing. I never played a minute in the NHL. Many of my closest friends did. I never even had a start in the American Hockey League. Almost every one of my friends did. Spent their careers there. So it took me a little while to really see, wow, look at all those great things that came out of my career. I lived in beautiful parts of the world. I met my wife. We traveled all over the place. Met some amazing friends. I learned a couple other languages, learned how to be bilingual in French. And those are some of the small little wins that I had throughout my time. And for me, transitioning into the working world, it's hands down factual that athletes get hired more and are higher achievers than those who didn't play sports their whole life. If you look at it, the competitive nature that's established in athletes, and especially you look at a sales job, that's why many hockey players go into sales. They're all in medical sales, not because they learned a thing or two about that in college. It's all because it's a competitive field, and many of them just want to do what they've done their whole lives.
No, it makes so much sense. And I guess I want to throw out to the parents this idea that Julian Breesbaugh, the GM at the Lightning, he has a book that, not his book, but he distributes a book, kind of a coaching manual to everybody involved with youth programs. They do a nice kind of learn to play thing where they give out sticks and pucks to people all over the community all the time. And one cool thing is in this book that's for coaches, it says that the ideal way to keep kids motivated, kids of every age, by the way, human beings really, is to find a way to come up with at least a 3-to-1 ratio of 3 truthful, good, positive things that happened to every one piece of constructive criticism. And think about that ratio. This is just human beings. This is based on psychology research. And it's the idea that we want to know we're succeeding. We want to know there's hope. And the great thing about that is if you give 3 positive things, truthful positive things, along with a piece of constructive criticism, people are just happier. So I want to throw out this idea, instead of maybe the word gratitude, which might be poo-pooed or pushed aside, think about this idea of, hey, one step closer, one step closer. Hey, today, one step closer, because in the end, every single practice, if you're working, has a couple things that gets you one step closer to your big dream. And it's positive feedback to yourself, knowing that you did something that's moving you forward. Because in the end, this is hard, but it's also amazing. People are so happy in the sport. People are so drawn to the sport. People love this thing because it's so crazy and awesome. And I really think if we can find a way to be grateful for our path while we're being dialed, while we're being driven toward the things we want, great things can happen.
And there's a very well-renowned book called Atomic Habits, and you basically describe the book. One step closer, little by little. And the reason it's called Atomic Habits is because an atom, obviously, is not tangible. It's the tiniest... a cell? I don't know. An atom can't be really tangible to see how big it is. It's so minuscule. So in that book, all it talks about is just making these small step after small step. And then over the course of time, you'll see these more tangible results. But it's about doing it over and over and over. It reiterates many of the things that we've talked about already. And that's the point of playing sports and many of the great things that you learn along the way. You learn the process of keeping on to show up and doing your best to wake up early and stay out for those extra sessions. And it's all about the process and doing it time after time, not just every now and then. And that's why I said it before, but the athletes, as they move on and they get over their end of their playing days, once they find that field that they want to try to be successful in, their old habits are going to take over. And that's why you'll find many of the, some of the people on the Fortune 500 were previous athletes in their former days. No,
it's awesome. You're talking about this subatomic particle thing. There's a thing in nature that's pretty fascinating. The Grand Canyon was actually, as best we know, created by the Colorado River just carving through land. And over the years, just that force, carving, it eventually made this amazing, amazing canyon. So in that, you don't see it happening. I mean, you've visited the Grand Canyon. I have. I don't see it being made, but it's still being made now, little by little, one raindrop at a time, one flow of water at a time. And, even trees, you see the same thing. When was the last time you saw a tree grow? You never do. But, a year goes by, you're like, holy crap, I can't believe how big that thing is. It really is like that. These little steps, one step closer, is a giant thing. So, Jeff, let me ask you, guys who've gone through this. Guys who have ended their careers really proud and happy and ended their careers kind of empty. But there is something you've seen on both sides. They've ended up somewhere really good in looking back. Can you think of anybody you know, whether it's somebody close to you or maybe people you've worked with, who you saw that once they had a chance to just stand back and look at all of it, they were just so happy they had the whole ride. Even if they didn't make the absolute top, they're so happy they had the whole ride.
Yeah, we've had a variety of guests on. I know Jeff Lavecchio, who he played a handful of games in the NHL. He's a very well-renowned trainer in the St. Louis area. He's someone who did reach the peak in the NHL. He had some real bad concussion symptoms that took place, and he was, at one point, I think he was just in a dark room for 6 months of just barely being able to see any daylight. And then I know from speaking to him and having him mentor many of our Athlete Academy members, he just got to the point where he just wanted to give back and do everything he possibly could because he realized how many people helped him along the way to finally get to that pinnacle of success in the NHL, and it was just taken away that quickly by having one bad head injury, and he never really made his way back. So sometimes it takes that type of situation, but him in particular is someone who I, as a teenager, we spent a lot of time together because we were both goal-oriented and very driven athletes, and then we're both in the field of training and mentoring youth athletes, and I think both of us really come to this point where we said, if we're going to do something and wake up every day and hit the ground running, we want to do something that we're passionate about, and I think it takes gratitude to have that energy.
That's awesome. So I guess just to wrap up, I just want people to know, and I know you want people to know, what can they use now? And the thing to use now is, I think it's completely clear to everybody that this is all about shooting for some big goal. We all have goals, and goals are really, really important. But those are all little mountaintops. And along the way, there's a lot of adversity, a lot of stuff you get stuck in your head and stuck in that instinctive doubt, fear, worry. And it's good to work through that. But one of the antidotes of this is to really find a way to enjoy all of it. And this isn't some fluffy Disney World thing. Hey, it's all going to be okay. I know it's not going to be okay. You're going to have an injury. Some bad thing's going to happen. But in the end, what we're trying to do is tell you that if you can, in your relentless, dialed way of trying to get to each one of these mountaintops, which is fantastic to have these things, try to enjoy the pieces. Try to remember that it's one step closer every day. And even when a whole bunch of things go bad, man, you just got tougher because you dealt with crap. It makes you stronger for life, not just for now, but on the ice tomorrow, on the ice for this peak and this peak and this peak and beyond hockey and your family and your job. It's an amazing sport that you can have your entire life. Ask any 75-year-old who plays. It's an amazing thing. And I love the fact that we went to this today because it could get to a point where you could think that maybe it really is all negative, but it's not. Life's full of suffering and full of amazing joy, and that's the truth. And if you can find a way to enjoy your path along the way, it'll be fuel to help you get what you want.
It's the old phrase, shoot for the stars and you'll end up on the moon. Set those goals high, enjoy your ride, shoot for the stars, you'll end up on the moon is a good way to look at it. And I remember to all of our listeners and families and parents and athletes in all sports, keep staying dialed and staying driven on your goals, because that's the only way to accomplish success and enjoy the ride. And as a reminder, make sure to follow us on all of our social platforms. We're at Dialed and Driven and dialedandriven@gmail.com. Again, any reviews or subscribes are appreciated as we're trying to influence the next generation of athletes.
One of the best saves you will ever see, keeps this game alive.
Chris Palmer again, the Hockey Mentality Podcast, Dialed and Driven.